So this is to do with health and identity, our identity, because this is what we're unraveling during this during meditation as a practice and during this spiritual journey. Um, so yeah, as it comes to our health, this is part of being misidentified, right? So I've mentioned things like we can be misidentified with our job, the amount of money we have, our possessions, um, and it's anywhere like I am something, right? I am a doctor, right? But that can change. So it can't be who you truly are. You might work as a doctor, but it's not who you are. And like I'm a teacher, it's like you work as a teacher. So I work as a teacher, but it's not who you are because someday you're probably not going to do it anymore. Um, so as it relates to our health, many of us can become misidentified with our emotions and the diseases that we experience. And this can be a huge obstacle to people healing. So I'm going to give the example of depression, right? I am depressed, a thing that many people say. It's not, it's just inaccurate. They might feel depressed, but I am depressed is a complete misidentification with their emotions. So what that person has probably experienced is an accumulation of psychological and emotional weight, which is manifested in them experiencing a feeling of depression, of heaviness. They're kind of stuck in the past, emotionally, psychologically, energetically. So they feel weighed down, right? They feel depressed. I think there's even a beautiful, the word depress means to push down. So if we're constantly suppressing and pushing down our emotions and not giving ourselves permission to feel them and distracting ourselves when we get triggered and different things like that, then over time that's going to accumulate to the point where we feel depressed, feel heavy, feel weighed down, feel stuck, right? These are all symptoms, right? But I am depressed, right? If someone lives in that world of I am depressed, firstly, it just sounds like a prison, right? There's like I said yesterday, there's a permanence to that. It's like I'm depressed. That there's no part in that sentence that it's like it's transient and that it will pass. So, like I said, that person, the feeling of depression has become familiar to them, that now they identify with it. So it's like, I felt like this for some time. Now that means I am depressed, right? Instead of realizing that they're a soul having a human experience and they might feel depressed. And it might have become familiar to them where they felt depressed yesterday and they felt depressed the day before. And even if for the last few months, they felt depressed quite a lot of the time, right? But it's not who they are. And it's realizing that even though it's become a familiar experience to them, who they are is a soul having a human experience. At, at their core essence, they are peace. Peace is who they are. But like I said, this depressed feeling has now become familiar to them. And that's why people misidentify. So even a far more powerful way of like declaring that is, I feel depressed at the moment. And even that, it's like, okay, this experience will pass. But for many people, it's become so familiar, they don't even believe it will pass. They're like, this is the way it is now for me. I have depression, I am depressed, and there's no possibility to heal. So this is an idea of how we can become misidentified with our emotions. And it's the same with anxiety too. So people get So worry and concern and being on edge becomes familiar to them. So eventually, at some stage, they're like, okay, I am an anxious person. That's just who I am, right? Instead of realizing, no, your soul having a human experience, and anxiety has become familiar to you, but it's not who you are. And as with any, like for that person who declares themselves as an anxious person, anxiety arises. And then it's like, oh, there we go. There's the evidence. I am an anxious person. Instead of in that moment just being like, wow, anxiety, this feeling of anxiousness has arose within me. Can I make space for that as a fleeting experience that will pass? And then, even if someone wants to journal, it's like, okay, what factors in my life, what is it that I'm concerned about? What is it that I'm worried about? What worst case scenario am I imagining? And this is real healing, right? This is actually healing. And this is a lot of what I'm trying to speak about today. It's empowering you to reveal the healer that you are. That's all this meditation is about. It's about you, empowering you. So you realize you are your own best healer, because you are. That's just, you are your own best healer. And meditation is a great tool because it helps us to realize that. It empowers us. So, yeah, same with disease. So so that's mental disease, right? Is depression, anxiety. And like I said, it's an accumulation. So we accumulate for depression. It's like we accumulate weight, psychologically, emotionally, energetically. And then it feels like we're way down and we had the experience of feeling depressed. So it's like, okay, what events have not been digested emotionally? And when we begin to process those events and the emotions and the thoughts that come with them, then you begin to come back into your inherent state of peace and lightness. You're no longer carrying this big bag of weight of emotions on your back. And then for anxiety, you know, Peter Crone uses the phrase past hurt informs future fear. So often it's like we're trying to avoid what's already happened. So it's kind of like this play between past and future. It's stuff that we haven't reconciled in our past. Well, now because we haven't reconciled it, we're worried it's going to happen again. And this is where this whole future-based anxiety comes from. And within that, kind of these contexts, which many of you would have heard me talk about before, of I'm not safe and I'm not going to be okay. Right? These are the two kind of contexts around anxiety. Because if I feel like I'm not safe and I feel like I'm not going to be okay, there's an absence of trust. And when there's an absence of trust, yeah, I'm going to be worried about stuff. I'm going to be worried about outcomes. So, yeah, what's the practice then for this? What's the practice? It's to embrace your humanity. So, yeah, like you might feel anxious. It's like, do I go into a story of, and the mind might well go into a story that I'm an anxious person and all this, but just be the witness and embrace, like, anxiety is an experience within yourself, right? So it's like, okay, can I allow this experience to be there? Same with like feeling heavy. It's like, oh, like, wow, like, can I allow that to be there? Instead of just like resisting it, because that's the habit pattern of the mind maybe that we've built up is, I don't want this. How do I make this go away? And like I said yesterday, true acceptance is you're not wanting it to be any different. You're accepting that experience as it is. That's true acceptance. And this is where, for some people, meditation can become a bit of a trap because they're like, oh, peace, calm, I like that. I want that. And then they want it all the time. But it's realizing that that is transient and fleeting too. And you don't need to attach and hold on to it. So it's about embracing all of this human experience. When the pain, when the discomfort, when the unpleasantness arises, accepting it as it is, not wanting it to cease, loving it as it is. And then when the pleasant sensations arise, just being the witness too. Yeah, and then there's one that comes to me. This is like a little, just a little mantra that helps me at times. Because I experience the sensations, the unpleasant sensations, thoughts, the emotions. It's part of being human. But now when they arise, I have a little mantra and I just say, I see you, I love you. And I'm gonna finish with that. So yeah, I see you, I love you.